Not internet wrong. Not he's just tripping again for the algorithm. Not he had a bad night and woke up wanting to go viral. I mean legitimately, medically, spiritually wrong on a cellular level. We are exactly 18 months out from the most decisive, earth-shaking, foundation-clearing cultural victory in the modern history of hip-hop, which is basically 3 weeks out of a state penitentiary in internet time, where memories are short, but the archives are entirely permanent. And the very first thing you decide to do, on a random Tuesday morning, with the entire world watching and the chat moving so fast the text is physically blurring on the monitors, is look directly into a high-definition lens and actively audition for a body bag. I mean, come on. Look, I'm just gonna say it. And I'm going to say it with my whole chest because nobody else in this entire compromised media ecosystem wants to put their actual name on the reality of this situation. You do not survive this level of public delusion. You just don't. Because the man really sat there, under the studio lights, with the full weight of his entire journalistic platform pressed against the glass, and told the entire hip-hop universe that Aubrey Graham owns 60% of the culture right now, while Kendrick Lamar is sitting on the leftover 40. 60. 40. Say those numbers out loud in an empty room one time, just once, and listen to how profoundly, embarrassingly insane they sound echoing off the walls. That is not a hot take, family. That is not a bold, contrarian opinion designed to stimulate debate in a barbershop. That is a man staring at a 5-story building entirely engulfed in 3-alarm flames and desperately trying to sell you non-refundable beachfront property inside the 3rd floor. And I refuse, absolutely and categorically refuse, to let that ghost math sit on the internet unchallenged for one more single day, because the very second you allow a lie that massive to breathe, you become complicit in the death of the culture. Livingston, sweetie, buckle up, because this one is combustible, and I am not holding back a single piece of ammunition today. I am your favorite messy correspondent, the one who actually reads the filings, the one who checks the timestamps, the one who tracks the LLCs, and today, we are taking your little streaming spreadsheet, we are dousing it in high-octane aviation fuel, and we are throwing a lit match directly into the center of the desk. We need to have a very serious, very uncomfortable, very necessary family meeting about what just happened on that broadcast. Because what nobody is talking about, while every other reactionary commentary channel is just running with the headline, clipping the video for TikTok, and laughing at the absurdity of the math, is the actual, terrifying corporate infrastructure behind why that specific number was said out loud on that specific day. This connection has never been made public until right now, and the room, the real room, the green rooms, the executive suites, the places where the actual money moves, is whispering that this wasn't an accident. This was a mandated talking point. This was protocol. And it is about to cost him absolutely everything he has spent the last decade building. I've been watching this specific ecosystem for 5 years, tracking every single micro-movement, and I know exactly how this ends because the subject has a deeply established recent history of stepping onto landmines he completely fabricated himself. Peel the layer back with me for a second and look at the actual reality of the board. Kendrick Lamar just walked off a Super Bowl halftime stage that literally shattered every single Nielsen rating the culture keeps, turning a corporate NFL broadcast into a militant West Coast coronation that had full-grown men crying in 3 different time zones. He just wrapped a global stadium run that printed money in secondary markets that Aubrey hasn't been able to confidently book in half a decade without heavily papering the room. He is still, at this exact moment in time, running an unprecedented victory lap on a record that has permanently, irreparably rewired the structural vocabulary of how an entire generation speaks about Toronto. Everybody was watching Akademiks. The entire internet was waiting to see how the self-appointed gatekeeper would process the undeniable reality of the streets. He had 3 possible versions of reality to choose from. He could have picked the reality where he takes the loss gracefully, admits the ecosystem has shifted, and pivots his channel to cover the new era. He could have picked the reality where he just stays entirely quiet, plays the new music, and lets the Spotify algorithm do the heavy lifting. He picked door number 3. He picked the pyrotechnics. He lit the fuse on his own remaining credibility, threw it onto the public timeline, and smiled while the shrapnel hit his own audience. The clip itself is painfully short, maybe 12 seconds in total, But the forensic evidence inside those 12 seconds is staggering. I had to read the transcript 3 times and watch the footage frame by frame to truly believe what I was looking at. Pause on this frame. Look at the background. The lighting is harsh. The studio setup is expensive. But look at the clothing, because in this specific arena, the clothing is pure, unadulterated evidence. He's wearing that black and red fitted cap with the block letters, sitting sideways, cocked exactly at the specific angle of a man who desperately needs you to believe he has localized street authority. He sat back in that expensive leather gaming chair like he had already won an argument that the entire planet knows he lost spectacularly a year and a half ago. That is not accidental. That is not an outfit. That is a signature. That is the physical manifestation of a man trying to cosplay as a hardened cultural gatekeeper while the actual gates have already been torn off their hinges, melted down, and sold for scrap metal by the very artists he claims to critique. You could see it entirely in his face. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly how fraudulent the mathematics were. And he said it anyway to guarantee the freeze-frame viral moment. Real talk, it does not work that way. It has never worked that way in the history of this genre. Because while Akademiks is inside that temperature-controlled, soundproofed box screaming at a Twitch chat full of 16-year-olds who don't even know who won the Nas and Jay-Z beef, performing a manic, high-decibel ritual of outrage for an algorithm that demands constant blood sacrifice. Look at the opposition figure. Look at Kendrick Lamar. Look at the absolute, terrifying contrast. Cold, calm, zero background music, zero filter, no frantic stream overlay, sitting in absolute, deafening silence. Kendrick Lamar is the place violence goes to die instead of the place violence goes to get scheduled for a 9 p.m. YouTube premiere. The mismatch is the danger here. Akademiks is performing chaos because chaos is the only possible environment where fake numbers, ghost streams, and manipulated percentages can survive the sunlight. Kendrick Lamar is not performing anything. Kendrick Lamar cannot perform quiet. He is the quiet. He is the deafening silence before the artillery lands. And when the quiet guy in the room is the one holding all the actual cultural leverage, the guy screaming into the microphone is just broadcasting his own coordinates to the snipers. And you could see it in Akademiks' body language. Tell me if I'm wrong. Am I the only one seeing this? Watch the clip again without the audio. The vocal cords were cracking on the high notes. He was physically flinching mid-diss, correcting his own sentences before he even finished them, looking off-camera at his secondary monitor like he was waiting for a teleprompter to save him. His physical body was completely betraying him because, in that single 12-second span of broadcast, he completely strips himself of the one costume he has been wearing this whole time. The costume of the objective, fearless, independent hip-hop news authority. Stripped clean. Nothing left but the exposed skeleton of a corporate cheerleader. What you are looking at is a man playing football. Not metaphorically. Literally. He is running zero blitz interference on the front line for an organization that has already packed its equipment trunks, boarded the private jets, and left the stadium parking lot. He strips Blueface of his costume every week. He strips these reality TV stars of their costumes every week. But right here, on this stream, he is doing the exact same thing. He is wearing a media credential to do PR work. Now here is where it gets highly combustible, and I genuinely hate that I'm even repeating this, but we have to look at the entire board. The subject has a deeply established, painfully weak response pattern whenever the Toronto camp takes a localized hit. And the room is whispering that. And y'all better sit down for this, because this is the hidden thread. The room is whispering that phones have already been passed. The mentor connection here is undeniable, and it is toxic. Akademiks is running the exact same playbook Aubrey runs when the street credibility starts to rapidly evaporate. By the narrative, shift the metric, change the subject, and if you can't win the actual war, hire enough media surrogates to convince the internet that the war was actually a tie. It's a borrowed defense mechanism. It is the exact same strategy you see on the reunion episodes of reality television, where a cast member gets exposed in 4K resolution, and instead of apologizing, they spend 45 minutes arguing with the producer about the edit. But this isn't a reality show edit. This is the real world, and the borrowed playbook is failing in real time because the audience actually possesses the unedited footage. Because here's the thing, and I'm trying to put this together as I say it so you can see the architecture. There is an inside protocol and an outside protocol. The outside protocol is the public relations mask, the loud, obnoxious claims that Aubrey is simply outlasting his enemies, that he's playing 12-dimensional chess while the industry plays checkers, that he's floating above the fray in an elevated sphere of commercial and algorithmic superiority. But the inside protocol? Between me and you? They keep folders. They watch the internal streaming analytics drop off an absolute cliff after week 3 of a new release. They see the radio program directors quietly moving the new singles out of heavy rotation because the listener request lines are completely dead. The asymmetry between those two protocols is where the danger lives. The mismatch between the inside panic and the outside arrogance is the exact fault line where media empires fracture and collapse. And Akademiks is standing directly on top of that fault line with a megaphone, trying to convince the seismologists that the earthquake is just a bass drop. Livingston, my brother, listen to me. I say this with my whole chest, and I say it because somebody has to. The Minter playbook you are running right now, it is expired. It has a timestamp from 2018 on it, and the milk has gone completely sour. You cannot reverse engineer a cultural coronation using a Twitch chat poll that you manipulated yourself. You cannot bundle a historical, generation-defining defeat with a limited edition merch drop and a pre-order code. You cannot gaslight an entire global culture that actively watched that is a man looking at a spreadsheet that says 0 and screaming 60 so loud his throat bleeds. And I am not going to say out loud on this channel what that kind of desperate narrative manipulation implies about the late-night phone calls happening between the 416 area code and that streaming studio in New Jersey. I'm just not going to do it because the metadata speaks for itself. But the story is the pattern. The pattern is weaponized denial. It is the systematic, coordinated attempt by the opposition's media apparatus to convince the consumer that what they saw with their own eyes never actually occurred. It is an attempt to rewrite the score of a championship game long after the confetti has been swept off the floor, the stadium lights have been turned off, and the rings have been distributed. And they are using Akademiks as the human shield to absorb the blowback from that rewritten history. The spiral has a history, gang. And here we go again. Every time I think we're done, every time I think the ecosystem has finally settled and we can get back to talking about the actual music, he pulls something new. Look at the previous incidents. He ran this exact same mathematical grift during the Pusha T fallout, trying to convince us that the story of Adidon didn't actually matter because Aubrey's streaming numbers on Spotify were higher. He ran it during the Meek Mill ghostwriting exposure, shifting the goalposts from who wrote the verse to who sold more units. Every single time the cultural consensus turns violently against the boy, Akademiks jumps on a stream and starts actively dismantling himself, trading in whatever remaining credibility he possesses for a temporary algorithmic shield to protect Toronto. He is voluntarily, enthusiastically dismantling his own legacy to protect a billionaire who wouldn't cross a busy intersection to pull him out of a burning car. It is a one-sided loyalty pact that is destroying the very platform that made the loyalty valuable in the first place. But this new clip is fundamentally different. The currency of the culture has shifted completely beneath his feet while he was busy looking at a Spotify dashboard. We are no longer trading in followers or stream counts or first-week bundle sales. We are trading in memory. We are trading in historical permanence. And the internet is forever. When you put a 60-40 split on the board while the rest of the planet is currently doing the not like us walk at family reunions, weddings, and high school graduations, you are no longer documenting hip-hop culture. You are fighting it. The evidence is permanent. The VODs are permanent. This isn't just a bad take that vanishes into the timeline. It is documented, time-stamped evidence of a complete detachment from reality. He is putting his signature on a document that the future will use to prove he lost his mind. Word from the block, from the actual operators who move quietly in the shadows of the industry, the managers, the booking agents, the actual shot callers, is that the triad of consequences is already in motion. Between me and you? First, the phone calls stop getting answered. The exclusive scoops dry up because nobody trusts the pipeline anymore. Then, the rooms start getting cleared out. The VIP sections suddenly don't have space. Finally, the folders from the legal departments get opened because nobody wants their brand associated with a sinking ship. The broader corporate ecosystem is already making its tactical adjustments, quietly, seamlessly distancing itself from the radioactive fallout of this narrative disaster. And when the industry is quiet, that is the loudest siren. Look at the family silence. Look at the inner circle of the OVO media apparatus. When the primary mother figures of that ecosystem, and I am talking about the PR reps, the label heads, the senior brand managers who historically leap in front of bullets to protect the image, are completely silent, you need to pay very close attention. It is the Carlisa paradox. She can perform outrage for the cameras all day long, but she cannot perform quiet. When Carlisa is quiet, you know the lawyers have stepped into the room. And right now, the entire OVO media apparatus is displaying that exact same loud silence paradox. They can perform outrage over a missed album drop. They can perform victimhood when the Grammy nominations don't go their way, but they cannot perform quiet when the fundamental power structure shifts. That quiet crosses the threshold from entertainment into pure, unadulterated fear. Now, I'm going to pivot because, look, I would be doing you a massive disservice if I didn't connect this to the partner figures in this space. Look at the other streamers, the ex-co-hosts, the podcast partners who used to ride shotgun with AK, the ones who built their subscriber bases leeching off his drama. Look at their cryptic posting right now. They are watching a parallel situation unfold, remembering what happens when you tie your entire boat to a sinking anchor. They are scrubbing their own timelines. Some of them are literally posting prayer requests disguised as think pieces because they know the fallout is going to splash onto them. They recognize that the 60-40 clip wasn't just a bad take. It was a contagion, and they are frantically trying to quarantine themselves before the culture lumps them in with the delusion. There is a massive, unaddressed elephant sitting directly in the middle of the room, and its name is capability mismatch. We have to audit the resumes. Aubrey Graham is a generational pop entertainer, a titan of the crossover. He is a soldier for the algorithm, not metaphorically, literally. He builds records designed to be consumed passively in shopping malls and fitness centers. But Kendrick Lamar? He is a soldier for the culture. The algorithm is the digital playground where pop entertainers lease their relevance 48 hours at a time. The barbershop, the block, the cipher, that is where real soldiers are minted, and those mints do not expire. And Akademiks is trying to measure a soldier's tactical output using an entertainer's accounting scale. It's embarrassing. It is like trying to measure the impact of a hurricane by counting how many umbrellas were sold at a local convenience store. The mismatch is the entire story. The last decade of hip-hop media has a massive, overcrowded graveyard attached to it. A graveyard filled to the absolute brim with platforms, personalities, and executives who made the fatal calculation that they could bet against the verifiable truth of the streets in exchange for corporate access and VIP passes. Every single one of those boxes is currently checked on Akademiks' ledger. The compromise commentary, the constantly shifting goalposts, the aggressive gaslighting of an audience that knows better, the total reliance on industry relationships over journalistic integrity. This part genuinely upsets me, because he is out there doing this completely unsupervised. There is nobody in his ear, nobody to grab his arm before he hits the broadcast button and say, "Bro, the math isn't working. You look insane. Turn the camera off." He is entirely alone in a room full of yes men, driving 120 miles an hour toward a brick wall, and nobody is reaching for the emergency brake. Everybody wants to know how this specific train wreck reaches its ultimate conclusion. When you analyze a media collapse of this magnitude, there are always three potential pathways. Option 1, Akademiks hides. He executes the classic internet retreat, claims he was exhausted, blames a lack of sleep, says the clip was taken out of context, and quietly buries the VOD. Option 2. He leans all the way in. He doubles down on the delusion, brings in secondary OVO surrogates to construct even more elaborate spreadsheets, screams louder, and goes down with the ship playing the violin. Way 3. I am not going to say out loud on this channel today what Way 3 looks like. Way 3 is not on this channel today. I hope, genuinely and sincerely, that we do not end up having to document Way 3, because Way 3 is permanent. Because as we sit here right now, the inner circle is executing a textbook ghosting procedure. The baseline human survival instinct is kicking in. The line producers, the brand sponsors, the adjacent YouTube commentators, The people who actually love Livingston are making sure their names are nowhere near this specific strain of revisionist history. Silence is the ultimate form of evidence in the entertainment industry, and their sudden, total silence is a loud, ringing confession that they cannot defend the math. They are letting him take the bullet alone because they know the bullet is fatal. Akademiks had a clear, unambiguous choice when he sat down in front of that camera. He could have chosen to align his platform with the undeniable data of the real world. Two options: the truth or the spreadsheet. He could have looked at the historical pattern of media figures who tried to lie to the culture and failed, and he could have chosen the truth. Or he could have chosen to retreat into the lucrative delusion of his benefactor's PR machine. He chose the delusion. He picked door number 3. But history tells us that when you choose delusion against the culture never forgets. I hope he finds a way out of the corner he has painted himself into. I really do. Because the fall from being a prime hip-hop journalist to becoming a cautionary footnote is a brutal, agonizing drop. Livingston is somebody's son. Aubrey is somebody's father. I promise you, with everything inside me, that I am not trying to be dramatic right now, but we are actively witnessing a desperate attempt to rewrite the definitive history of our culture, and it is failing spectacularly on a global stage. The final question we have to ask is simple. Is Akademiks capable of shutting his mouth, putting down the calculator, and humbling himself before the art form? Or has the internet permanently rewired him into a machine that only knows how to double down on its own destruction? I don't know the answer yet, but I am parked front row with the camera rolling, and I am not moving an inch until the final frame. Stay safe, stay smart, stay off the block.